as a PhD student, I use Logos in a multitude of ways, from intensive reading for my research seminars to working in biblical language exegesis for research purposes to even using Logos for reading devotionals and for Bible reading. So I'm using Logos on a daily basis in a multitude of ways, and I'm using it consistently and constantly in my PhD program for all sorts of different purposes. But I wanted to take a moment to highlight 4 specific ways in which I use Logos as a PhD student who is majoring in systematic theology to further my goals in studying systematic theology. And the first way, and one of the most crucial ways in which I use Logos, is for searching theological journals, specifically combining Bible search terms with topical search terms when searching the theological journals. Because this is one area where Logos excels over trying to search for theological journals in an online database or through my school's library database or even with other Bible software platforms. So with the theological journals, I have both the latest Galaxy Theological Journal Library, the volumes 1 through 20 that's available. I also have the Master Journal Bundle, the latest edition available in Logos as well. And in one paper that I had to write for seminary, we had to study the topic of death and spiritual death as it relates to Genesis 2:17. It says, "Of every tree in the garden that thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it, for in the day that thou eatest thereof thou shalt surely die." Well, we had to go into further and further research this topic of death as it relates to Genesis 2:17. And so what I did in Logos was I created a collection of all of my theological journals. And the way I did that was simply go to the Tools menu. And here in Logos 8, you can now just search for the tool that you need. So I could type in Collections, and it pulls it up under Library. And I created a collection of all of my theological journals. In addition to using the type journal, so I used type:"journal" to search all of the journals that Logos specifically tags as a journal, I also leveraged the My Tag feature in Logos, and I tagged a few resources that were resources that contained some frequent articles of scholarship that weren't specifically technically classified as a journal, but I also added those to my list as well because sometimes I may want to look through some of those when performing research purposes as well. And the collection automatically saved itself and synced up in Logos. And then I simply performed a search. I simply clicked the search button on the main toolbar, and then I selected a basic search, and I wanted all text in my theological journals collection. I simply opened up where to narrow down my search and typed in journal. That found my theological journals collection, and then I ran the search. In this case, I did a Bible equals search for Genesis 2:17, and then I used the term near, the near proximity operator, and then I used the term death. So this would allow me to search anywhere where Genesis 2:17 is near the term death, so I can get a better understanding of this concept of spiritual death as it relates to the passage in Genesis 2:17. Now, I could broaden or narrow this search even more with some additional operators in Logos. Instead of using the equal sign, I could have used the tilde sign, and what that would do is it would mention any verse range that included Genesis 2:17, not just 2:17 itself. And if I wanted to be more precise within how many words, I could have said within, and then, for example, 10 words or something like that, or within 20 words. I could use the within operator instead of the near operator to more refine the search and get a little more precise as well. So generally what I'll do when they perform these searches, I'll start with a Bible equals search, and I'll use near because that's a quick and easy way to do it. And then if I need to get more precise, then I can either broaden out or narrow in, depending on how many search results I get back. In this case, I received 251 search results with the near search, and that would have been enough for me to go through and get a pretty good, deep understanding of what I'm looking at. Another way to search for journals is to use the passage guide, and there's a journals section in the passage guide. So I can run the search for Genesis 2:17 in the passage guide. And just to remind people, one way to get to the passage guide is by going to the guides menu, and I can just type in passage, and that will display the passage guide as well here in Logos 8. And once I have the passage guide pulled up, I can then click on journals, and it will allow me to search my journals for the passage as well. So this is another great, quick, and easy way to search journals for a particular passage. Depending on what I'm wanting to do with these searches, sometimes I will leverage the passage guide if I just need to search for a Bible verse. But if I need to search for a Bible verse and a certain term as well and combine the two, then the search box is a really great way to do that. And this is one thing that I've not been able to do in any other platform or any other online search way of journals. This is one big reason why I love having my journals in Logos, so I can combine the passage searching with a topic as well together. And so that's how I search with journals, both from the search level and through the passage guide as well. Another way in which I leverage the passage guide as one who's majoring in systematic theology, I'll also search my systematic theologies for a certain passage. So if I need to break down and look at any particular category of theology, I can do that right here from the passage guide. So if I want to see how it works on, for example, hamartiology or anthropology, then I can break that down and I can look at it by subject. I can also look at it by resource as well. And so if I want to see how the Baptists handled this topic, or how Lutherans handle this topic, or even how Reforms handle this topic, then I can search my systematic theologies in that way. In addition, my minor is in biblical theology, so I can also search my biblical theologies for my biblical theology classes right here from the passage guide, and I can again drill down either by the subject itself, or I can filter it by resource, and so we can look at whole Bible theologies, or we can even just look at older New Testament theologies from this page. And also, since confessional documents play another role of something that we as systematic theologians need to look at, we can also pull in the confessional documents right here in the passage guide as well. And again, I can break down by anthropology, I can look at soteriology, I can see how they look here, or I can again filter by resource, and I can look at Baptist, I can look at Reformed, even modern Catholic, and look at the documents that way. So the first way and the second way in which I use Logos heavily in my systematic theology courses is by searching my theological journals, and then I'll also leverage the passage guide for searching theological journals, as well as systematic theologies, biblical theologies, and confessional documents resources. Another brief way in which I use Logos for something very quick is if I need to look up a term in a theological dictionary. In systematic theology, there's all sorts of terminology to come across and to learn and to know. And even though I'm in a PhD program in systematic theology, I haven't mastered all of the terminology yet in systematic theology. So when I come across a term in a book such as superlapsarianism, it's even hard to pronounce, and I need to know more about a particular term and need to get an extended definition, I'll turn to a resource such as the Evangelical Dictionary of Theology. The latest edition is now available in Logos, and I keep it pinned right here on my main toolbar so I can easily get to it. So at any time, if I'm reading through a theology book and I need to be able to look up a quick term, then I can open the Evangelical Dictionary of Theology and get to the term right there and get a nice extended definition as well. Of course, if I'm reading the book in Logos, I can just right-click on the terminology in the book and be able to send the search to the Evangelical Dictionary Theology there by using prioritized resources. Of course, that's another great method as well. One of the last methods that I'll mention in terms of how I use Logos for systematic theology is a new feature in Logos 8 called the Theology Guide. At times when there's a topic that I may just want to take the study further as I'm going through my PhD comprehensive bibliography, and I'll run across a topic in a book that I may want to know about some other resources where I can take the topic further. Or if I get a question as a student studying in a PhD program, studying systematic theology, I will have people ask me different questions at times about biblical topics and want to know about resources and ways in which to take the topics further. The new Theology Guide in Logos 8 has been a great a resource that allows me to do some of that additional study. So if I go to the guides menu and type in theology, I can launch the new theology guide, which I have here on the screen. And one topic that I need to study further in my PhD program and get a better understanding of are the theories of atonement. That's an area that I haven't really gone very in-depth yet in my studies, and I would like to take it further. And the theology guide allows me to do that. It shows me where this topic fits in the overall scope of systematic theology. It even gives me a nice little chart here that I can look at as well. I can open the Lexham Survey of Theology and I can get some additional information here, even an overview of the different theories. So especially if I'm wanting to explain this to somebody else and give them an overview of this theological topic, then the Lexham Survey of Theology is a great and concise overview of these theological topics that I can present to someone else. And I can even get to that right here from the guide as well by clicking on More. I can even look at some theologically related passages and key verses. I can even save these as a passage list or open them right up in my preferred Bible. So I can go through and study some of the key passages related to my topic. There's also recommended reading as well. So this gives me some of the books and even mobile education courses that specifically highlight this particular passage, this particular theological topic, that allows me to take it further. And it also does go and search my systematic theologies as well for the topic and puts everything right here at my fingertips where I can study this topic further. So I can even sort by articles and see the articles. I can sort by ranked, and then I can even sort by resource and then just drill down into any resource. And there's some really excellent resources here. And I can just simply drill down and click on what I need to click on to go straight to the chapter and be able to take this study even further. And it's also a great way for me to recommend resources to people when they ask me these questions. So with the combination of working with the theological journals, being able to search a Bible passage and a topic all in one using the search engine is a powerful way in which to leverage Logos for theological studies. Being able to search for the theological journals as well as systematic theologies, biblical theologies, and confessional documents right from the passage guide is another great way in which I leverage Logos for theological research. Being able to quickly access a theological dictionary such as the Evangelical Dictionary of Theology in Logos and be able to look up terminology and concepts that are especially maybe new to me in the PhD program is a great way in which I can leverage Logos for that, as well as being able to use the new theology guide, brand new in Logos 8, for surveys of theological topics that I may want to go further into research on, as well as be able to answer any theological questions that people ask me as a student, and then be able to go from the theology guide and branch out into those additional realms of research is a great way to be able to take that research further when I come across a topic that I do wish to study further. So these are just a handful of the many different ways in which I use Logos in my PhD program, and I hope some of these ways are beneficial to other Logos users as they harness the power of Logos for their own personal research as well.